Hi everyone, welcome back to SR Online class. And today I'm going to upload one more video just before the exam for revise well and prepare well for the exam. Today our topic is Travel Alone. It's written by Charles Dickens. David Copperfield is great playwright, and we'll see that the struggle of David in this chapter. So let's go for this chapter and we'll divide that in a very short way and short points. First of all, we'll see that David struggles throughout the story and how he gets meet with his aunt, Miss Betsy. Let's see. David actually is orphan. His parents had been died before, and he is looking for Miss Betsy, his aunt. Actually, she was the only person who could look after him in his childhood, but she didn't. So, what happened to him? First of all, here it is describing about David, who's David, and how he got orphan. And next, he urges his wish that he wants to meet Miss Betsy, but how? So he needs some money. That's why he went to Peggy, the old servant of the dead parents, of his dead parents, and he borrowed half guinea from her. Then he started his journey to Dover Beach, and in his way, he faced so many difficulties. At first, the cur diver, he took this half guinea what he borrowed from Miss Peggotty. So it was very difficult for him to continue his journey, but he never gave up his journey. So then he needed the food in his journey. So he sold his coat also for the food. And next we'll see that he spent the night in a haystack, and it was a roofless night, starry night. You can see in the picture, and it was for the first time for him to live a night without the roof. Next, again, he needed the money, and he went to the shop. As you can see, he was sitting very disappointed. Okay, and he wanted to sell his jacket also, as you can see on that line, jacket, to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper was also very naughty, and he had given him 18 pence, but he had to wait for so many hours because he was giving half pence at a time. That's why he had to get 18 pence for so many years. Then he continued his journey towards Dover Beach, and he reached there. He asked for so many people where his aunt lived. He asked to everyone, sometimes to boatman, sometimes one another shopkeeper, and he got to know about his aunt that sometimes she was a criminal locked up in jail for child stealing. One said she was a witch riding on a broom. Full name of Miss Betsy was Miss Betsy Trotwood. I remember it. At last, he came to a shop when he wanted to ask about Miss Betsy, and he had seen one woman was just looking like Miss Betsy. Actually, he didn't know who was Miss Betsy, and he never had seen her from his childhood. So he thought that she might be the person whom he was looking for. So he followed that woman, and at last he came to Miss Betsy's house, his aunt's house, actually to say sorry and to ask few questions that why she left him for destitute. Actually, she was only the person to look after her, but she never took that responsibility from the childhood, and that's why this often David had to go for the work. As you know, the child, every child should have the right to get the education, proper education and nurture from their parents, and whoever was taking care of this child. But he never got. He had to go for the money. He had to earn the money. So his life full of struggles only for this person, Miss Betsy, his aunt. So you can see the knife in her hand. So at last, nothing happened. No crime scene happened. Actually, Miss Betsy said sorry to David, and the story ended very in a very tragic way. That Miss Betsy asked for the mercy on us, you can see the last line, mercy on us. So she asked for the mercy from David. So we'll look after this chapter from the first and we'll read it line by line and we'll try to find out few points from there. So from the first, I do not know how this desperate idea came into my mind. Desperate idea. So it's only pointing out to go to Dover Beach and to meet his aunt, Miss Betsy. But once there, it remained there. Not that I believed there was anything hopeful in it, but I had made up my mind to carry it out. I had many times gone over that old story my poor mother had told me about my birth. So, old story, why? Because his mother was dead. My aunt walked into the story and out of it. So, aunt, obviously, Miss Betsy Trotwood. And so, get into the story and out of it, a person to be feared. So, why he feared of his aunt? That might be a question. Obviously, we'll come to know about that. But there was one little quality in her behavior towards my mother which gave me a little shadow of encouragement. So, only for this one, he started his journey and wanted to meet Miss Betsy and with full of enthusiasm. As I did not even know where Miss Betsy lived, so he didn't know where she lived, I wrote a letter to Peggotty, servant in the household of David's dead parents. From here, we come to know that he was a orphan. He was an orphan. Asked her if she remembered. I had also asked Peggotty in my letter if she could give me a half guinea as a loan. We'll look this chapter as a journey of David Copperfield to the Dover Beach. Not only that, his journey from that innocence to the mature also. He started his life also as a mature person. As you know, a child should go for that education, should be nurtured well, should fulfill his dream, should go for the field to play. But he had to start his journey where he had to earn money, and by doing the overwork, overday work, and from here we'll see that his struggle of being that mature person. Being a child, also he behaved like a mature. See here, he wanted the half guinea as a loan. You know that what is loan means, to return it with the interest. So a child can demand, but here he owes to give it or return it with that loan, means with that interest. Peggotty's answer came soon. She had enclosed the half guinea and told me that Miss Betsy lived near Dover Beach. So from Peggotty, he came to know that she lived in Dover Beach. But that was all she could say. So Peggotty only could give only that much of information and half guinea. My weekly wages were given to me in advance. I didn't want to owe a penny to Murdstone and Greenpeace. So I worked till sudden night. तो उसको overtime work भी करना पड़ा इसके लिए. I said I was going and that I had to move my box to my new lodging at Tips, and I ran away. On the way to my lodging, I saw a young man in a donkey cart. तो यही वो पर्सन है जो उससे जो हाफ गिनी जो उसको मिला था पेगेटी से, उसको छीन लिया था. I asked him whether he would move my box and take it to the Dover coach office for 6 pence. So from half guinea he wanted to expend only 6 pence to reach Dover Beach. He nodded and whipped up his donkey. He came up to my room and carried my box down. I asked him to wait for me down the road. उसको रोकने के लिए बोला था. The words were no sooner out of my mouth Then he rattled away. I was quite out of breath when I caught up with him near the coach office. Suddenly, my half guinea tumbled out of my pocket. पॉकेट से निकल गया उसका हाफ किनी. I put it in my mouth for safety when I received a violent shock under the chin from the young man. I saw my half guinea fly out of my mouth into his hand. तो इस हालत में उसको थोड़ा परेशानी भी झेलना पड़ा. Actually, this donkey cart driver, he wanted to steal this money, half guinea, from this little boy, and he punched in his below chin. Actually, he wanted to save his money, and he put in his mouth. But this blow actually took out this money and received by this donkey cart driver. Hey, he cried, seizing me by the collar. This looks like a police case to me. You have been stolen money and you were trying to run away, are you? Give my money back, he said, very frightened, and let it go for me. Come to the police, he replied, and prove the money is yours. तो उसको चुराने के बाद ऑब्वियसली कोई भी उसको मारने के लिए तैयार नहीं होगा कि उसका किसका मानी था. तो डोंकी कार्ट ड्राइवर वो क्लेम किया कि उसका मानी है. He said, dragging me to the cart. Suddenly, however, he changed his mind. With a jerk, he let go of me and I jumped into the cart. Then I whipped the donkey madly. I ran after him as fast as I could. Now I lost him. Now I saw him. Now I lost him. तो एक बार उसको देख रहा था, एक बार उसको खो रहा था. Obviously, he was very fast with his donkey cart. At last, I stood still and watched him go out of sight. But soon, I was struck by the fear that half of London's police would be after me. तो उसके पीछे पुलिस भी लग गया था. I turned and began to run, panting. Panting means breathing heavily and running, but never stopping towards Greenwich. I was told that this was on the Dover beach. I would have a run mile or so when I sat down to rest on a doorstep on the Kent Road. It was the loss of the half guinea that upset me most. तो कोई भी इस सिचुएशन को समझ सकता है कि उसको हाफ गिनी बहुत ही परेशानी से मिला था और पेगोटी से. As he borrowed, and with the oath that he would return it with the loan, with the interest, not that half guinea. By adding some money with it, he had to return. तो बस डोवर बीच उसको जाना ही था. तो he was desperate. The question might be asked how he was desperate. So we have to answer this, that at first we have to tell that his life, that how he earned money in his child life. Also being a child, he also had to earn money. Next, he had to borrow the half guinea from the servant. Next, in this way, he lost his money. His money had been stolen by a donkey cart driver, but still he wanted to go on, so he never gave up. We'll see some more cases in his during his journey. It was the loss of the half guinea that upset me most, for I had counted on it fed me on my journey to Dover in search of Aunt Betsy. But miserable though I was, I had no thought of going back. तो इस लाइन से एकदम पता चलता है कि उसको पीछे जाने की कोई मूड नहीं था. उसको आगे ही जाना था. डोवर बीच कैसे भी पहुंचना था उसको. I began to walk again. तो ये उसका शुरू होता है जर्नी फिर से. हाफ किनी लॉस्ट होने के बाद भी वो अपना जर्नी कंटिन्यू रखा. I passed a little shop where it was written, the best price is given for old clothes. तो ये था अपना प्लान. I could sell my waistcoat. तो तब उसको लगा कि वेस्ट कोट सेल करने देना चाहिए क्योंकि उसको भूख लगा था. I thought and buy some food for myself. ओके, तो ये लाइन बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. तो उसको भूख लगा था, इसके लिए वो अपना वेस्ट कोट भी सेल करने के लिए तैयार था. Remember, this was very cold place and selling off this waistcoat is a very hard time for him. But still he wanted to sell off this one because of the food he needed in his journey. I went into a side street, took up my waistcoat and rolling it neatly under my arm, walked back towards the shop. If you please, sir, I say to the owner to the shop. Remember, I means here David only. So David having this whole story and his journey also. I'd like to sell this for a fair price. He took the waistcoat, I went into the shop, held it up against the light and said, what price do you name for this little waistcoat? Would 18 pence be about right, sir? I said. तो वो 18 pence मांगा उसके लिए, वेस्टकोट के लिए. I won't give more than 9 pence. तो यहाँ पे एक बर्गेन होता है, तो उसको 9 pence से ज़्यादा मिल नहीं रहा था. I said, 9 pence, if he pleased. He gave the money after much grumbling. तो उसको भी 9 pence मिला, बहुत बार्गेनिंग करने के बाद फिर मिला उसको 9 pence. It was night now. I found a haystack. तो haystack वही है जो पिक्चर में दिख रहा है, by the side of the road, and climbed to the top and lay down. Never shall I forget the lonely feeling of first laying down. यहाँ से पता चलता कि उसको ये फर्स्ट टाइम था उसको ले डाउन, मतलब haystack के ऊपर, और roofless night ये फर्स्ट टाइम था. यहाँ इस लाइन से पता चलता है. तो if the evidence comes or question asks that was it a first time for him, yes, it was a first time. So this line will be the evidence for it. Without a roof above my head. In the morning, I felt the warm rays of the sun on me. I got up and was soon on the dusty road to Dover. As evening came, I was over the bridge and Rochester, footsore and tired. I lay down and ate the bread I had bought for supper. तो जो खाना उसको मिला था वेस्टकोट सेल करने के बाद, तो वही खाना वो खा रहा था. I woke up with the beating of drums and marching of troops, quite dazed. Marching of troops और कुछ नहीं, बस military कुछ marching हो रहा था, उस drum beat से वो जग गया. I stood up and felt my legs stiff. If I had to keep my feet for the rest of my journey, I should sell my jacket and get some food. इतना भूखा था क्योंकि वो पैर ही नहीं चल रहा था उसका. I found a shop at the corner of a dirty lane. तो उसके लिए जानी इतना स्ट्रगल हो गया था कि उसके पास ना फूड था, ना जगह था सोने के लिए, ना उसके पास कोई एनर्जी था वो जर्नी कंटिन्यू करने का. फिर भी वो जर्नी कंटिन्यू करा. तो हाउ डिस्परेट ही वाज, you have to describe it in this way. After this selling the waistcoat, he had to spend a roofless night, and then he also decided to sell off his jacket to buy some food. Oh, what do you want? Said he, showing his teeth in a terrible smile. Oh, my eyes and limbs are. I wanted to know, I said slowly, trembling, if you'd buy a jacket. Oh, my liver, cried the old man, throwing the jacket on the shelf. Get out of the shower. Don't ask for money. Make it an exchange. Actually, the old man, was alcoholic. He was drunken. That's why his voice was like that. And he was not even to look this boy and not even to listen to this boy and what he wanted actually. And he never asked that why he wanted to sell off his jacket. I told him humbly that I wanted money and nothing else was of any use to me. He said he did not give it with him. Then I said I had to wait for it. He came out many times and tried to make me agree to an exchange. At last he began to pay me in half pence at a time, and it was so many years before it got to 18 pence. तब उसको 18 pence मिलने में घंटों लग गया. बहुत ही घंटा चला गया उसका. हाफ पेंस करके करके मिलने में 18 पेंस मिलने में बहुत ही घंटा चला गया. तो वो जो ओल्ड मैन था, ड्रंकन ओल्ड मैन, वो समझ नहीं रहा था उसको किस लिए वो जैकेट बेच रहा है, क्योंकि उसको भूख है, वो भूखा है वो, तो उसको कितना ज़रूरत है वो मनी, तो उसको पता नहीं चल रहा था. तो उसको लेट करवाते करवाते हाफ पेंस करके देते देते 18 पेंस, मतलब समझ रहे थे 18 into 2, 36 times he had to wait for it. The sun had set now and I felt the place. I spent 3 pence on food and drink. तो 3 pence वो खर्च किया फूड एंड ड्रिंक के पीछे. माई बेड एट नाइट वॉज अनदर haystack. तो सेकेंड नाइट भी haystack के ऊपर ही उसको बिताया. तो ये सेकेंड नाइट था. Next morning I took the road again. Through all my troubles on my journey, there was one thing that gave me comfort, my mind's picture of my mother. तो एक ही चीज़ उसका बहुत अच्छा था कि उसके मम्मी का जो इमेज, माइंड इमेज आ रहा था, तो वही उसको कंफर्ट दे रहा था और कुछ नहीं. तो if it asked that what was the only comfort in his journey, so obviously his mother's picture, the mind picture of his mother, that really comforted him in his journey. So mother in her youth and beauty sitting by fire. When I came up the bare open rolling ground near Dover, there was some hope in my heart. But when I actually set foot in the town itself, on the 6th day of my flight, 6th day, तो ये छठा दिन था. तो ये छठा दिन था वो उसका जर्नी कंप्लीट करने में. And stood on a pavement, all hope left me. I asked about my aunt among the boatmen first and received various answers. Uh, One said she was locked up in jail and tried for child stealing. Another that she was seen riding on a broom. तो कोई भी कुछ भी आंसर दे रहा था. कोई बोला कि वो. I asked about my aunt among the boatmen first and received various answers. तो वो boatmen को पहले पूछा, उसको बहुत डिफरेंट तरीके से वो आंसर मिला. So someone said that actually the boatman said that she was locked up in a jail for the child stealing. So child stealing के कारण में उसको जेल जाना पड़ा. और someone said that she was riding on a broom. तो as a witch पता है ना, जैसे कोई झाड़ू के ऊपर बैठ के सवारी लेना है ना, तो वैसा टाइप का ब्रू मतलब विच से उसको तुलना किया गया. By now it was afternoon and I was sitting on the step of an empty shop at a street corner. Just then a coachman coming by with his carriage dropped a horse cloth. As I handed it up, I saw the coachman's face was a kind one and asked him if he knew where Miss Trotwood lived. Trotwood, said he. Let me see. Old lady, with a very straight back, said he, making himself upright, and with a very sharp voice and manner. My heart sank within me as I nodded at the true description of the lady. तो अब उसको मिला कि हाँ शायद इसको पता है, ये इतने सारा कुछ उसके बारे में पता है, तो मतलब इसको पता है कहाँ मिस ट्रॉटवुड रहते हैं. I tell you what, said he, pointing with his whip to the high ground on the right. If you go up there and keep right until you come to some houses facing sea, you'll hear of her. I thanked him and went in the direction. Soon I came to a shop and said to the shopkeeper, will you have the goodness to tell me where Miss Trotwood lives? He was weighing some rice for a young woman who turned round quickly when she heard the name. मतलब वहाँ पे जो एक यंग वुमन था वो तुरंत पीछे मुड़ के देखा. वो नाम सुनते ही मतलब उसको कुछ नाम से पता था. My mistress, said she. What do you want, boy? I want, I replied, to speak to her, if you please. तो ये उसका मेड था. ठीक है, इसका मेड थी, तो बहुत अच्छे से पहचानते थे. मतलब उसका ही मेड है तो उसको बहुत अच्छे से पहचानती है. तब फॉर्चुनेटली ही मेट मिस ट्रॉटवुड्स maid in the shop. The young woman told me that she was going to Miss Trotwood's house herself and I could follow her. I followed her and we came to a small cottage with cheerful bay windows. In front of it there was a stone path and a garden full of flowers. Garden full of flowers. Okay, ये थोड़ा नोट करना है क्योंकि first of all we have seen that Miss Betsy actually left David in his childhood, but here is a full of garden, full of flowers in his garden, in a garden. तो इसका मतलब है we know that thing that who loves the child also loves the flowers. पर यहाँ पे flowers ही flowers है. That means she loves the flowers but not the child. Why so? Why there is a part of upsetting with the child and hating the child? तो ये उसको कारण जानना था. This is Miss Trotwood's house, she said and hurried into the house and left me standing at the garden gate. I looked down at myself. My shoes had lost their shape. Obviously जाने में इतना कुछ तकलीफ हुआ कि पहले फूड के बारे में सोचना पड़ा, फिर सोने के बारे में सोचना पड़ा. तो उसके पास टाइम ही नहीं था कि उसके जूते के बारे में कुछ सोचे. तो दैट्स वाई ही लॉस्ट हिज शेप एंड लेदर हैड कम ऑफ इन मेनी प्लेसेस. माई हैट वॉज क्रश्ड एंड बेंट. तो उसका ड्रेस जो था पूरा बिखर गया था एकदम. माई शर्ट एंड ट्राउजर्स वर टॉर्न एंड डर्टी विथ हिट. उसके बाद भी वो अपना जर्नी कंटिन्यू करे. तो हाउ डिस्परेट ही वॉज इफ द क्वेश्चन आस्क्स दिस ऑल वुड बी द आंसर. Togetherly you have to collect all the information and you have to write in an answer. It was very silent at the living room window, so she was not there. I lifted my eyes to the window above it where I saw a red-faced, pleasant-looking gentleman. He screwed up one eye in a funny manner, just like एक eyebrow उठा के जैसे कोई देखते हैं ना, बहुत funny manner में, nodded his head at me number of times, laughed and went away. At that moment, there came out of the house a lady with a handkerchief tied over her cap and a pair of gardening gloves on her hand. That means वो गार्डनिंग कर रही थी, मतलब फूलों का देखभाल कर रही थी. शी कैरीड अ ग्रेट नाइफ इन अ हैंड. ऑब्वियसली वो नाइफ कुछ और काम के लिए नहीं, वो गार्डनिंग कर रही थी इसीलिए. आई नो हर एट वॉन्ट्स टू बी मिस बेटसी. तो ही रिकग्नाइज्ड हर, फॉर शी केम आउट ऑफ द हाउस एग्जैक्टली एज माई मदर हैड सो ऑफन डिस्क्राइब्ड हर. तो उसकी मम्मी से जो डिस्क्रिप्शन मिला था एकदम वो डिस्क्रिप्शन मिल गया कि मिस बेटसी जो एक्चुअली वो वुमन वॉज कमिंग, तो उससे एकदम मिल गया. दैट मीन्स ही रिकग्नाइज्ड her perfectly. Go away, said Miss Betsy, shaking her head. Go away, no boys here. तो उसको एकदम पूरी तरीके से भगाने की कोशिश किया मिस बेटसी. आई वॉच्ड हर विथ माई हार्ट एट माई लिप्स. हार्ट एट माई लिप्स, हाँ दिस इज़ एन इडियम. हार्ट एट माई लिप्स इज़ अ वेरी डेंजरस कंडीशन. हम भी बोलते हैं कि हमारे हार्ट बाहर चला आया, तो मुंह पे चला आया हार्ट, तो वो कुछ ऐसा फनी सिचुएशन है. एक्चुअली दिस doesn't exist, but actually he was very feared of. We previously knew that it was also written by him that one person he mostly hated and feared of, that is his aunt Miss Betsy. As she walked to the corner of the garden and bent to dig up some root there, then without any courage at all but with a great deal of desperation, I went softly in and stood beside her. फिर भी he actually he gathered the courage to stand beside or in front of her and to please her. I touched her with my finger and began saying, "If you please, ma'am." So there is a very polite reply from David. After all this, after all Miss Betsy had done with him, still he was very polite. And that's why he made his journey. She stared and looked up. "If you please, aunt." "Eh?" exclaimed Miss Betsy in a tone of great surprise. "If you please, aunt, I'm your nephew." So he wanted to please her from every side. "Oh Lord," said my aunt and sat down on the garden path. "I'm David Copperfield of Blunderstone." But now we come to know from where he belonged to, Blunderstone in Suffolk. So if the address of David comes, then we have to mark it. He lived in Blunderstone in Suffolk. Okay. You had to come there on the night when I was born and I saw my dear mama. I have been very unhappy since she died. Sure. So now he was describing uh, his reason of unhappiness, his struggle to meet her after so long time, so long way out. Why he wanted to meet Miss Betsy? Actually, he wanted to tell all this to her aunt, to his aunt. So I have been very unhappy since she died. I have been neglected, taught nothing, and put to work. Taught nothing. That means he had no education, and put to work. He had to earn money in his little and tender age. It made me run away to you. I was robbed when I first set out. I have walked all the way from London and have never slept in a bed since I began my journey. So we come to know that he went for the haystack for 2 times. Here my self-support gave way and I broke down. तो अब वो एकदम टूट गया उसके आंट के सामने सब कुछ बताने के बाद. Actually, on the day of his birth, Miss Betsy was also there. His parents also died. At the time, Miss Betsy neglected him and ran away from there and came in this Dover beach. My aunt sat on the ground, staring at me until I began to sob. Sob means weeping, crying. Then she got up suddenly and took me into her living room, holding by my collar. She opened a tall cupboard, took out a bottle, and made me a drink something as I was still unable to control my sobs. She put me on the sofa and then, sitting herself by the window, exclaimed every now and then सब कुछ उसको बोला कि कब कैसे हुआ क्यों हुआ. उसके बाद एक ही बात बोला कि मर्सी होनस. तो मर्सी होनस, क्षमा कर दो मुझे, हम लोग को क्षमा कर दो. तो मिस बेट्सी is very older than this little boy. Still, she broke down and asked for the pardon, asked to forgive her. वो बच्चों से क्षमा मांगा लास्ट में. तो obviously she came to know about what she had done and she should not do this thing. She learned a great lesson from this little boy. She neglected him, but still this boy took this journey to Dover Beach and he was very much painful in his journey. Still, he made his journey successful and met her to tell only these things that he was a nephew and he wanted to stay with her only. So here the story ends and we come to know the struggle of David throughout his journey. The story only talks about David's inner struggle and his maturity, how he manages himself in his journey. Being a child also in his tender age also, how he behaved like a mature one. This all we got to know from this little boy. Thank you. We'll meet again in the next video.